Garin Baker. I'm an artist, traditional figurative representational painter in New Windsor, New York, where's my home and studio. Originally from New York City. For years I've called it Carriage House Art Studios, still do, and that's sort of part of doing the art workshops. In fact, there was once a grant available for farms in New York State. If you were a farm, and I thought, hey, maybe I can get this grant to help me pay for some of the barn renovation. So I actually submitted a grant application, and they wrote back and said, but you're not really a farm. And I was like, well, we're planting the seeds of creativity every day. And I got sort of summarily rejected, but anyway, so we went ahead and renovated anyway, and with them or without them. Well, I mean, it's such a large house. Obviously for many years we raised our kids here and a lot of their friends, and there was always a lot of family, and it was always a very kind of loving, thriving, wonderful place. The kids, had a wonderful childhood here. The basement of our old 1790 stone house. And they built this thing to last. Look at this thing. It's incredible stone work and timber work. Very cool. I mean, we've done a lot of, renovations over the years, but really haven't touched much in the basement. So you're pretty much seeing it in its pristine condition. Nothing documented, nothing written down, or nothing official, but that the house was a stop on the Underground Railroad. And there are a little bit of evidence that you can see if you come in real close. On this door, there are markings right here, kind of faintly over the years. But looks like they were marking off days, So I really can't tell whether that's authentic or something, but obviously somebody made some markings there. This is actually another cool feature. So, go back a little American history. This is all hand forged right after the War of 1812, because most of our ironworks came from Britain, overseas. And, Britannia rules the waves. But when we went to war with them, they stopped all of that, and we had to then begin forging and smelting and making our own ironware. Mm-hmm. And so this is an actual American-made. It's pretty cool. The walls are 2.5, 3 feet thick, all hand and field stone, probably locally sourced way back in the early 1800s. But we found some things on the property which are very cool, because this is very old. It's an old colonial bottle, with its imperfections, it's hand-blown glass with the neck applied. It's a very cool item. And pristine, maybe an old rum bottle. And this thing is the coolest thing. When I was renovating the carriage house in the barn, this was nailed to an inside wall, basically like that. And then I pulled it off. Yeah, so George B. Alexander, says age 21 years, 4 months, and 12 days. March 17th, 1865, Union League of America, which was the emergence of a carpenter's union. And so he was a young apprentice. And I don't know if you're familiar with this date, but March 17th, 1865 is literally just under a month, 1865, the day President Lincoln was assassinated. So it's very close. And this is a, really very unique, very kind of, special thing that we found. It's very cool. And you want to see the bread oven? We actually use it and make the most phenomenal pizzas come out of this oven. It's really quite cool. And so, this was a working kitchen back in the early 1800s. And, they didn't have GE or KitchenAid or any of this stuff. That's just how they cooked, in there. And probably had this burning once or twice or 2 or 3 times a week, which is, frankly, a lot of work. Getting the bricks white hot, burning a fire in there for a few hours. And then you can literally bake breads and pies and casseroles and things in there for several hours. So it's a very cool, piece of American history right there. Over the years of the renovations, we started to use the studio because it's a nice, comfortable space. Renovated it, piece by piece. I didn't have the kind of finances, to drop, $500,000 on renovations, which is, maybe on the low side of what it actually ended up costing, even though we're constantly renovating. But there was always the idea of making, and we have over the years made it into, a sort of a mini art kind of cultural hub. And for painting and drawing, the figure, traditional painting, as well as Hudson River School painting workshops. So from time to time, I have models pose, and a bunch of artists show up, miraculously so, and we all paint together. I invite people to come up from the city and from elsewhere to paint along the Hudson River, which is literally like 3 minutes from the house here, right on the banks of the glorious Hudson. In one way, shape, or form, over the years and sort of progressively, we've created a kind of a little mini, I say mini because in relationship to other art institutions, it's a really mini place. It's kind of become known, in a sense in the Hudson Valley for a place, to do Hudson River painting as well as, figurative painting and study in my studio. And that's what I've always kind of wanted to do with it. It just wasn't something that happened like immediately. It was kind of a progression. Much of life, I guess, is like a progression like that. Yeah. There's a nice, pensive, beautiful gaze in her eyes. Although there's a couple of things I'd probably like to tweak. But and then this structure here, the way her hand, although I still have work to do on it, but the way the shadow comes across here, and her breasts and this shoulder. This area down here was just really problematic. So compositionally, I think it'd be better if it's sitting on her knee. And we're gonna find out, right? We're gonna find out real quick. When I was like 14 or 15, my dad, who was in the film business, at the time he was a film distributor. And a young filmmaker came in and asked, "Can I show you my movie?" And that young filmmaker's name was David Lynch. And he showed my father, and I worked for my dad, an after-school job, as a projectionist in the office. And the film was called Eraserhead. So my father was like, what is this thing? And had a clever idea about how to market it and asked me to do the movie poster because I was going to High School of Art and Design at the time. I didn't really think much of it. I just did like a pen and ink drawing from a still from the movie, and they made a movie poster out of it. And the movie was like, after the Rocky Horror Picture Show, they showed it. It was a huge success. So to this day, people ask me, oh, you did the movie poster for Eraserhead? And I was like, yeah. So I was 15 or 16 years old. Did I know I was a professional artist? Probably not. I didn't really think about it in terms of being a professional artist. I was just making art. And my early training was really at the High School of Art and Design and then at the Art Students League. And so I was really trained in figurative drawing and figurative painting. And so I've always been like very interested in representational painting. The more of these you do, the more you really try to force yourself to see these kinds of dynamics and simplicities of the form, the more accurate over time your work, your paintings, your drawings are going to be. Movement, rhythm, all of the things that you work on with these kinds of exercises. Yeah, I mean, teaching, I've been blessed. I've had amazing teachers. I've studied with some of the greatest painters in the latter part of this, of our times, through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I've studied with some real heavyweights. I was really fortunate to stumble upon some really solid, great old-time New York painters. A couple of them are still working today in their 90s. So I was blessed. And I they always modeled for me a very generous spirit and a very open kind of passing the torch. They were taking these skills and these disciplines that had come from, the long lineage of great art, and they were passing the torch. And they always kind of, in one way or another, made it important for you to know that it was up to you to do the same, to pass the torch. The torch of wisdom, the torch of understanding, the torch of discipline, of hard work. And so that's really what took me into teaching. Because once you make a mark, it's permanent. And so you're very tentative about making the right mark. And what I'm trying to get across to you is to have the freedom, have the liberating quality with your materials so that you can be making lots of mistakes rather than being so careful that you're afraid to make one. Because it's through the process of making these mistakes that you learn better mistakes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, great. The making of art, all right. People are usually, and this was with a lot of students, they're afraid to make mistakes. They want it to be perfect. We're all sensitive. Most artists I know are pretty sensitive, and things affect them. And they need to do something with all of that. They need to express it. They need to cathartically get it out of their system, but they're very trepidatious about making mistakes. And kind of the approach that I use is to really embrace the mistakes. And by really looking at the entire process as a series of mistakes. And in that way, you can almost liberate the learning process. So it's about making mistakes. It's about encouraging the mistakes to happen. And this way you can be less cautious As they say, throw caution to the wind and make the mistakes, because each mistake is the next piece of information, the next clue that will inform the next mistake. Also, Danielle, watch what I do here.
Okay.
You watching?
I am.
Okay? I can't tell you how also freeing and liberating that is. Okay? Because I can, toss it right in the garbage. Because it's not really important what's happening on your drawing. The whole idea is to get your psychology in the right place and to take the permanence, the fear out of the process. The stresses and strains of making a living are sometimes unsurmountable as an artist. The consistency year after year of generating the kind of income, the building the audience and so forth. And sometimes you're worried, like what I'm doing, is that my audience going to respond to it? Is it going to generate commissions and sales and so forth and so on? So are you compromising your freedom of expression to worry about the audience and what the audience wants rather than what you are, in a sense, completely free to express? That's a little deeper question. And so those are some of the things that artists are asking themselves, especially now, where every artist is now given an opportunity with social media to move the gatekeepers out of the way and go directly to their audience. So there's a balance between pure self-expression, not caring about, what the audience want, and only really trying to satisfy your own ability or your own need to say something, and also, building an audience. So that's a little harder question. So what I want you to start thinking about is building a palette in order so that you can start a love affair with it. Okay? Because if you love it, it'll love you back. If you take care of it, it'll take care of you. You understand?
Yeah.
I mean that literally and figuratively. Like if you plan to make a life or a living out of art, this will take care of you. Okay? If I lock myself into an outline here, everything else must correspond to that one outline.
So avoid it in lieu of getting the dark,
Right.
focusing on the dark something.
Right, but absolutely. So I've got the shadow mix
Right.
ready to go. It's a lot of things that are actually happening. You want the spontaneity, you want the intuition, but you also want the accuracy, okay? Paintings are relatively stagnant, and a lot of people would say that, film, the moving picture has outpaced, the visual arts, especially painting. And is painting relevant anymore? All of these questions, But with painting, it's all important because the overall vision is and composition and design is what captures the viewer from 100 feet away and beckons them, either or not, depending on the painting, to come closer, to invite them for a closer look. So if you don't have the overall composition and design from really far away, you won't get the viewer to be interested. But as the viewer gets interested, they come closer and closer. And as the details start to reveal themselves, the moment one is out of place or one doesn't strike true with their visual information that they come to the painting with, they walk away. Because there's a lot of paintings, there are a lot of things to look at. There's a lot of things pulling people's attention these days. The more the painting reveals something satisfying to them, the closer and closer and closer they get. That touches something in that viewer, that touches something for them to continue to be curious until they're right up against your painting. Sometimes you can see beyond what's on the surface to actually see something that is kind of buried within it, that you can find meaning in. But there is a correlation between the house. It's not only just the visual, but every layer should reveal something about each person's humanity as they look at the work. So really trying to do work that's not just, a picture of something that they go, oh wow, look how real that looks. That's kind of not so important to me. What's important is look how real that feels. Look how real that triggers something in my own experience, my own humanity, where I can really identify with that work. And I think maybe the house and hopefully my paintings, hope against hope, might have some of that kind of effect.